Scruffy Audio Network.
Okay, good job. Hey, I listened to the start of our other podcast. You guys try to bring some energy this time. You were terrible.
Listen, don't even start. We can tell what kind of mood you're in.
Oh, man.
We can tell you've had a bad day or a bad week or something.
Forget you. Hey, welcome to Why Would You Go There? Podcast about travel.
Do something
I'm your
different.
host, Troy, and I'm here with my co-host, Miriam. Miriam, tell us about the special guest you brought today.
I brought my lovely, stubborn husband, Lee.
Yeah.
And your best friend.
Well, lovely and stubborn.
Yeah, we made it through all the therapy sessions from last week whenever we were recording, and we had all those problems, but Miriam finally got it all fixed, so we're good to go.
You didn't
now,
see my Instagram post, which was just two pictures, pictures of you two arguing.
Pretty fantastic.
People tell me all the time, "Oh, Suggs posted this or Troy posted that," and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me!" And they're like, "Oh, that wasn't you," and I'm like, "Do you think I would post anything like he posts?" No, you can tell which one he posts and which ones I post.
So why don't you, to start out, tell people where they can find us?
All right, so we are on Facebook and Instagram, which Troy runs. So if there's anything inappropriate on there, obviously that's him.
Why would you go there?
And why would you go there? And on Twitter, if you want to see some lovely content, beautiful pictures, obviously you can follow us at Why Would You Go. That's what
And Miriam, plug yourself. Plug yourself, Miriam.
Don't say that. We talked about this last time. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Travels with Miri.
Yeah, and if you want to know more about everything that is Troy, you can go to my website, troysuggs.com. And also follow me on Twitter at Age of Decision. That's the new book that's coming out, I hope, sometime next year.
Ooh,
So, has nothing to do with our podcast.
Yeah, applause. Hey, applause, Ben.
Ben,
applause.
Go back to sleep. Don't worry. No, don't.
Forget it now.
Thank you, Ben.
And we have all these
Thank
cool
you.
sounds. Run through the sounds for folks. They're super
gosh.
interested in them. Oh, yeah. There we go. Okay.
We've already lost half of our listeners.
Are you
I guess
kidding?
at least they downloaded it.
What do you mean our listeners? That's mine and Miriam's listeners. This is our podcast now.
From your 13 followers on Facebook or something.
Oh, man. I swear, this is a 70s sitcom waiting to happen. I cannot wait for it.
Well, I have a question.
Yeah, what is that?
What are we talking about today?
Today, this is part 2 of a 3-part series. Part 2 of a Trois series. Trois-part series.
Yeah.
About Australia.
Yeah.
So
Sweet.
first session 1 was about Cairns.
Correct.
Cairns.
Yes.
Cairns. It was about
Good job.
Cairns.
Yeah.
And session
And
2
if
is
you haven't
about...
listened to that, go back and listen.
yeah.
If you want to hear Miriam and I argue, it was great.
It's great entertainment.
I'm hoping to get more
Hopefully
of that this time.
she's fixed everything that she did wrong last time,
Hi.
which was a lot.
You should have
It was
just
a
stopped
lot.
with hopefully she's fixed.
Yeah.
And just left it there.
I'm so glad
Hopefully
you
she's
came, Miriam.
fixed.
You're so great.
Thanks.
And now, so this one is about
What's about?
the
Outback.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
That's exciting. So tell me, I want to know, is the Outback the same as the bush? Because they say the bush a lot.
They do, yes.
Yeah. And the Outback is the same?
It is the same.
So I feel like I would prefer calling it the bush.
Okay, yeah,
So
we can call it the bush.
Everybody would prefer bush to Outback.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so let's go with the bush.
All right. So we're talking about the bush today. Miriam, do you have
the
anything you want to
Outback.
add?
I
right, so
have a
let's-
lot to say, but I don't.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. So, for those of you that don't know, which is probably most people, there's several different territories in Australia, and the Outback is huge. I mean, it's in a lot of areas.
And it covers more than just Queensland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, so this is actually the Northern Territory.
Yes.
Okay.
So Northern Territory. But
Good
Man, that
mate.
sounded
that
great.
was pretty terrible. But that's where we went. We went to Alice Springs and Uluru.
Did you get some
And
chicken? That's what they have at the Outback. Alice Springs chicken.
They do actually. You're
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were waiting for Ben to give.
I
you
was. Damn it, Ben.
Yeah.
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 Come on.
Yeah. And your delay was almost as good as his joke. So good job to both of you all.
The good news is I think I'm funny.
That is, you definitely do. All right, so we got to Alice Springs and loved his little quaint airport. It's one of those that, it's gosh, Knoxville has a small airport. It's like
It's
a
not
fourth.
yeah.
I mean, it's like a fourth of the size
tiny.
of Knoxville.
Like Panama City Airport or something?
Well, no, they
Probably.
probably have like 6 flights a day, something like that. I mean,
Oh, wow.
it's really tiny.
I'm
I think
shocked.
they had more, actually.
Oh.
It seemed like they did.
I
But,
don't know.
they didn't have anywhere. You don't walk onto a concourse. You walk out into the
Tarmac.
tarmac. Yeah, so you just walk up and then walk up the steps. So that's kind of cool. So I like that airport when we flew in. It was a few-hour flight because it's so far. We talked about this previously. Australia seems like it's not huge, but it's huge. So we had to take a few-hour flight to get there.
Huge. Yeah.
So, do you know, Troy? Do you know anything about the Outback or the Northern Territory? Like, have you heard of
They call it the
anything?
bush.
Yeah, they do.
Have you heard of Alice?
Oh, good job.
Have you heard of Alice Springs before?
Yeah, I told you. I've eaten at Outback.
Good point.
It's chicken with
chicken
cheese
is
on
open.
it. It's chicken with cheese on it. Come on. Of course I've heard of it. I assume that it's a spring and that Alice found it.
Yeah. So I want to tell you about it a little bit, which I know Miriam did, but I'm going to interject because obviously my content is better.
It's probably all lies.
Yeah. So it kind of became a big city. So even though it's not like a big city,
Big
it's
city
the
that
biggest
has
city there.
6 flights into it every day.
It's
the biggest city
third
there.
So
largest.
it's
the third
nowhere.
It's the third largest town in the Northern Territory.
Yeah, which there's not really.
Yeah, it sounds small.
Darwin is
Darwin and Adelaide are the 2 largest.
okay.
Yep.
But it became a big city, or I guess the biggest city in that area, because of World War II, and it was a depot base and like a railway hub during that time. And when the Japanese bombed Darwin, the biggest,
right?
Well, I don't know if it's the biggest. I assume it's the biggest. Maybe Adelaide is. A lot of people in the military kind of moved south into the Alice Springs area.
So it's not on the
effectively
coast.
the desert. No,
Okay.
it
is
literally
actually.
desert.
Okay.
It is roughly the center of Australia.
When you say
Oh,
bush,
really?
you see one, I think.
That's good if you're married.
Oh gosh. Okay, this is the kind of stuff that is on Ben. Do not encourage, Ben. This is the kind of stuff that's on Facebook and Instagram, but you'll never see it on Twitter. So I apologize.
And that may have been over the line.
Yeah, shock. But anyway, yeah. So it's desert, and they call it the Red Center because you fly, and you're flying. We were flying for hours, and for an hour or two, all you see is just dust, not much of anything. And same thing that we'll probably talk about our drive too. But Alice Springs was very populated. It's a pretty populated area for out there. And it has anything you wanted to add about Alice Springs, I guess, the city
Yes, you
itself?
wanted to talk about it a lot.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I just have the list of things to do there. So not
Fire away.
specifically Alice Springs. But one thing they're really known for, and I've actually never seen this show, but Kangaroo Dundee. It's a documentary on Nat Geo or BBC UK. And it's based out of this kangaroo sanctuary, which is in Alice Springs. And so you can go at dusk and you find the kangaroos and you can
Get punched in the face.
You can hold them. We didn't get a chance to do that because we flew in late. We only had one afternoon there, basically.
Yeah,
so we were like, what are we going
which didn't help.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we didn't do that. But that's one of the, if you TripAdvisor, it's probably the top thing.
I TripAdvisor advised how do you say that? TripAdvisored?
Sure.
I searched TripAdvisor. I think that's how you say it. For things to do in the Outback.
Yeah.
And the 2 top things were like dinosaur museums. So did you see anything about dinosaur museums out there?
I don't remember seeing anything, but I definitely saw some of that stuff, before we were we left when we were researching stuff. So I'm sure that there's tons of stuff around.
Yeah. And you just said, who cares?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But yeah.
There's they do camel tours out into the desert so you can see the sunset or have a picnic. A lot of the touristy stuff is really geared towards getting you out of the little town and into the actual out in the desert. Yeah.
So we can kill you.
Also didn't do a camel tour. And then the other big thing they have there is the Alice Springs Desert Park, which is actually a conservation facility. So
which somebody wanted to go to mentioned it multiple times, but kept getting shot down. Just saying. So tell us all about it, Miriam. Since
it's just a good mix
Since
of
you didn't go?
plants, birds, and animals, and they have like the bird shows where the birds fly across, and then they
that sounds great.
They have
it does.
a nocturnal building that you go in that has all the nocturnal animals.
How cool is that?
And they do like guided tours, which you know how Lee is about guided tours, and I'm pretty sure you have to do a guided tour. So that's one of the reasons why we didn't go there, because I knew he would be upset about it.
That's not. I don't mind guided tours. I just don't listen to what people say. There's a difference. I'll still walk around with a group as long as I can see what I want to see.
Also, it closed at like 6:00, and we got there at 5, and it was like $40 a person for an hour. That seems a bit steep.
So it's a
Sounds like a
wildlife
bunch of
park. It has
excuses.
several
Yeah.
different places that you can different hikes or walks, I guess, that you walk through. So it was highly rated, and
For everybody but Miriam.
if we would have had more time, I think if we would have had more time, it probably would have been the next thing that we would have done. But the one major thing or the area that I wanted to talk about the most in that general vicinity was the McDonald ranges. There's an east and a west.
I thought you were going to say McDonald's.
Yeah.
Because you
we
love
could
some
talk about that.
Love some McDonald's in foreign countries.
I really do. I mean, I don't know if
do
I love
too,
it. It just
actually.
happens.
Yeah.
It just happens. I guess because it's just something I know.
And it
it's
happened
like
on this trip. It did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like twice. Well, that's because...
Oh, you still talking about McDonald's?
Yeah. Definitely.
Jeez.
So, but yeah, what's interesting is we didn't really talk about this the last place, but a lot of the places closed early. And one time I wanted to go to a grocery store and get something to cook because we had a kitchen.
Yeah.
And the grocery store was closed at 6:00.
You've got to be kidding me.
Nope, not
That's like the
kidding at all.
Midwest in this country. Remember that?
That is true.
Every restaurant shuts down at 8:00 at night.
Yep.
Oh,
And so we
It's
went
miserable.
to a sushi place like right across the street thinking, oh, okay,
that is
cool.
what
It
you
was-
want is sushi in the desert.
Well, this is a different area, but
Okay.
yeah. It was like 6:27. They're like, sorry, we're closing at 6:30. So here's some leftover sushi if you
Which is
want
what I
to
ate.
pick from that. Yeah, and I was like, I'm not eating the leftover sushi
Yeah.
for the day.
And wait a minute.
So I went to McDonald's.
So they closed. They're closing a restaurant at 6:37 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
What time do these people get up? Do they eat dinner at 4:00?
They eat brekkie.
Yeah.
And
What time
they're
they?
not. They're not. It didn't. The ones that we noticed, they weren't getting up and going. At like 4 or 5 in the morning. I mean,
This is
brekkie
so-
seemed like a little late.
This is so strange to me.
But yeah.
'Cause,
Well,
I mean,
you know.
we eat dinner 6, 7 o'clock here.
Yeah.
Europe 8, 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Apparently, the further east you go, the earlier you eat dinner because they're eating dinner at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or something. That is kind of strange. All right, so what else about Alice Springs?
So like Lee said, there's these McDonald ranges, an East McDonald range and a West McDonald range. So it had been highly recommended that we go see these ranges. So the West McDonald range is 400 miles long, and that's what we decided that first day we got there. We had the afternoon. We said we're going to drive as much as we can of this range. So basically, you're driving through the desert, and then there's this mountain range off in the distance.
Oh, cool.
And
Yeah, it's really cool.
That looks
there's
pretty.
different stops along the way that you can do. There's one called Simpson's Gap, which is actually a gap in the mountain range. It's like a big gap.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty cool because you can walk up and you can see through. You can't get to it to go. There's water in front of it, so you can't actually go to the other side. So it's this whole like, I wonder what's on the other side through the gap because you can't get to it.
You can walk around, but it's a long walk. But yeah, it's basically like two rock foundations where they don't quite meet, and they leave a little gap, and there's this, the water's there in front of it. So it's kind of cool. It offers a great picture because you can see this kind of gap, and then the water kind of flowing in front, or not flowing, I guess, because it's stagnant, but the water in front of it. And what's great about what we did about these West McDonald ranges is we were there late in the afternoon. So almost everywhere we went to see these places, it was very minimal tourists. And when we went, it was in August, which is their winter time. So it was great. I mean, it started getting a little cool in the afternoons.
it did.
The highs were during the day were probably 80
that's
degrees Fahrenheit, 85, something like that.
That's their winter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
And then, but the lows, we're getting down to probably the low 30s, maybe even upper 20s.
That's cool. That's a huge swing.
It was
big.
big.
It was
It was
really
big.
hard to pack.
Yeah,
it was.
I was
It
freezing
difficult.
all the time.
Yeah, so during the day, I mean, it's obviously fine.
Yeah.
And one thing I'll point out is there were tons of flies too. I mean, we passed these people wearing these fly masks, like literally a mask over their entire face, and Miriam and I are like, what are these people doing? These idiots, just looking at them, just kind of laughing, thinking these goofy people. Yeah, after a few hours, we're like, oh my gosh, I would pay $100 for one of those right now.
And what's really sad is when we got back, I did more research on it. That wasn't even like fly season. So the 10 flies that were bothering me, apparently certain times of the year, it's like you will have 60 flies on your face. And I was like, no.
Yeah,
no,
they were
You guys
constant.
are really selling Australia.
Yeah.
Well, you just got to pick and choose when you go.
Yeah. Or you got to wear a cool mask.
Never.
So.
Maybe you can have a good Darth Vader mask you can wear.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, but it's 80 degrees outside. So.
Yeah.
That's true.
The other thing I wanted to add about Simpsons Gap is as you're walking up to it, there's like rocks that have fallen, and they're known for having this specific wallaby, or rock wallaby, and they're, I guess, kind of going extinct, or they're endangered. And so we sat there and I was like, there's no animals here. And then I look up and I was like, Lee, look at that. I think there's one up there. And sure enough, there was this wallaby just standing up there staring down at us.
Oh, that's cool. Did you get a picture of it or no?
It was really far away. So I think we did, but you probably can't see it. And it blends in. I mean, it looks like a rock basically, but that was pretty cool. So that was our first stop, it was a pretty cool place.
Yeah, this is all part of the West McDonald Ranges. I mean, there's probably more than this, but I think there's like 10 kind of highlight areas or something like that, give or take a few. And we were able, before it got dark, we were able to get to 4 or 5.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we just tried to pick and choose.
You're going along there, and are you trying to find some place to stay at, or did you have a destination already?
So we had a place to stay.
In Alice Springs.
They actually had several hotels there, so they were all pretty standard hotels, which we can't say about the next place, that we stayed as much. But the Alice Springs area was, like I said, pretty heavily populated, so there was a lot there. But yeah, we were just trying to get.
So we were doing a couple hours out, and then we were doing a couple hours back.
Because
basically.
I mean, it's something like if you're doing the whole thing, it's probably going to take you at least 2 days, and depending on how much you want to hike, it could take you 3 or 4 days.
How about
none?
none?
You could do a ton.
How about none? If you want to hike none,
then it could probably take you a day.
Well, you would like this though, because a lot of these you park, and then the hike is maybe 10 to 15 minutes to get. But it's flat to get to where the site is, and then you stay there for a few minutes, take your pictures, and then you head back. So it's not.
I can do that.
A lot. There are other hikes you can do that are actual hikes, but most of these are set up pretty easily, so you can do it.
A lot of the places here and in the rest of the Outback that we'll talk about in a little bit, they had like straight line hikes or walks or whatever, 10, 15, 20 minutes sometimes. And then they also had, hey, here's the roundabout way.
Yeah.
If you want to do a walkabout.
Right.
And it's like 2 miles, or whatever it may be, or you can walk all the way around, and it's this. So it's kind of cool. So you can.
Do they use miles or kilometers?
Kilometers for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's why I said Fahrenheit earlier, because they use Celsius over there, just like everybody else except for us.
Yeah.
So the next place we went is called Ellery Creek Big Hole, and basically it's a big, huge water hole right in front of the mountains with another gap behind it. And we walk up, and this girl comes down, and she takes off this blanket, and she's got a bathing suit on, and she just gets in the water. Now, mind you,
man, I'm telling you, you had my interest peaked. She just takes off this blanket, and it's bathing suit.
Let me tell you, he told you that it gets kind of cool. So at this point, the sun was going down. It probably was like air temperature was maybe 50s, low 50s, and the water.
She was ready for the plunge, though.
Well, yeah, no hesitation. She got in, and Lee's like, I wish I brought my bathing suit. I would do that. And I was like, there's not a chance I would do it. So
she said,
he meant he would have went and swam with her.
That's
what he was talking about. I wish I brought my bathing suit, man.
So you would think with it being in the desert, maybe it gets hot, but the rock formations around it, basically
keep the sun from getting too much.
Yeah, all day, essentially every day. Well, maybe not all day, but essentially all throughout the day, it's blocking the light, so it's never really seeing direct sunlight. And I mean, you can just look. It is 50s probably at that point, maybe in the low 60s. you can tell that it's cool out there. And so we talked to her after. I was like, I got to know, how cold was it? And she was like, yeah, it was pretty cold.
Yeah.
But she
was
said
she Australian?
No, I don't know where she was.
I think she was from maybe like Europe or somewhere, because she said that she did these other, like, whatever they're called, polar plunges or ice plunges, whatever she said they were, which is a thing, apparently. And she named off a couple other different places. And I said, well, how does this, rank? How does this compare? And she's like, yeah, it's up there with it. But she said that she's even been in places that, like snow all around, like it's snowing outside and stuff. So the fact that she was pretty cold obviously said something. So, of course, I said, you know what? Let me show how tough I am. So I took my shoes and socks off and kind of walked out there. And man, it was cool. Living here in East Tennessee, there's the Smoky Mountains. So, river water, you grew up swimming in some of this river water around here. And it was cold. The river water here is cold. Yeah, it was cold. I mean, it was, I couldn't imagine being fully underwater. That would be pretty cold. I mean,
tingling?
I basically got up to, So there was like a little island part, after you walk through the water for, 15, 20 feet. So I stood on the island for a half a second, and of course the wind, blowing, and I'm like, man, this is cold. And I'd only went up to like essentially my calves,
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I got to walk back. And, when I walk back, it's all rock and stuff. So I'm walking, and I just like, because my feet are cold. I'm like, man, this little dagger's just daggering me the whole time. But it was cold. It could have been the coldest water I've ever been in, at least past like touching my finger and or my toe or something. So, but it was pretty cool. And it offered some pretty cool pictures too, because it's another body of water between two huge rock formations, and kind of almost like the mountains. So
sweet.
Yeah. Miriam?
Well, the next place we went was that day was probably my favorite place we went that day, and one of my favorite places we went that in all of the bush.
Oh yeah.
It was the Serpentine Gorge.
Oh yeah, you want a Serpentine Gorge in the bush? That is definitely what's happening.
This was when it was getting to be dusk, which was a little bit scary, because I was like, we're about to do this little walk, and we don't know where we are, anything. So we park, we walk out, and you get to what's supposed to be like the attraction, and it's supposed to be this gorge of water, and on the other side, they say it's where animals and the people meet, because the animals are protected because you can't get through this gorge to them. But they'll come up and drink water, and you can see them.
You didn't see any?
Oh, no, like there's like no water. I mean, it's like the smallest amount. The gorge is like dried up at this point. Yeah. There was not much. And so we both were like, well, that's kind of lame.
Dry riverbed.
So we go to walk back, and we see that there's a trail that goes straight up all these stairs to go to the top in like an overlook. Yeah. And it was actually a pretty hard walk. I'm sure for real hikers it wasn't, but for us, I was like, that was pretty tough.
For one of us.
And it just had some of the most breathtaking views over the desert, because the sun was going down, the colors were so pretty.
Yeah. How in the desert, whenever you see the sun kind of turn, or the sky, it starts turning from blue to kind of a lighter blue, and then you start seeing the shades of pink, and that's kind of where we were at. And it was steep. I mean, it wasn't like a super easy hike.
A lot of stairs.
But it did have a lot of stairs. But it definitely gave you a great overlook of, well, essentially the desert, so very, very flat area, but it gave you a great overlook, and it was cool. It probably was my favorite part of that area too.
Very cool.
It was also terrifying because Lee decided he needed to climb up on the rocks, that like there's a barrier, and he's like, well, the barriers don't apply to me, how
That's not true. The barrier wasn't there.
So he climbs up these rocks,
you need to say
the barrier was to the side. The rocks were open to be able to climb on.
Cross any barrier, so don't. Yeah.
So he starts climbing up there, and he said, what are the chances you'll climb up here too? I said, not a chance. And he said, well, just come up here for a picture. Not a chance. I'm not.
Selfie.
And he said, well, take some pictures of me up here. And I was like,
that's how people die.
I said that to him. I said, you need to come down right now. This is how people die. And he basically was like, give me my camera. And so I left. I was like, I'm done. I'm not. If you fall and die, it's on you, because I've told you to get down. So
this is so dramatic Go ahead.
So this leads to, though, on my walk back down, like by myself.
Crying.
No, I'm not crying. I'm just like, I hope he doesn't die, but if he does, it's,
I'm just going to go home.
If he does, he's got the keys, so I guess I'm stranded out here.
Oh, I'll go find your body on the ground and get them. So, so I started walking down, and like Lee said, there was no one at any of these spots. So this one, literally not another car there. It is the most
You think you would have had to eat his body? Like eat his dead body?
Yeah.
Do you think you would have had to survive until somebody showed up?
Yeah.
The next day?
Yeah.
Gosh.
It was like this moment of, I've never been anywhere that has been that quiet.
Creepy.
But it was creepy, but it also was this
peaceful.
Yes.
It was so peaceful.
It was like, I couldn't
So
hear
peaceful.
Lee because he was up at the top of the mountain.
I was doing cartwheels on the side of the rocks.
What you're saying basically is, anytime you can get away from Lee, it's peaceful. It wouldn't have been peaceful if he had been there, but he wasn't. So it was just you were living your best life.
Just to be clear, I mean, I'm not climbing on a rock that's like a jagged rock where I'm just like barely holding on. I mean, it is a flat rock that stretches out over the canyon, over the gorge, and I am easy 5 feet from it. From the edge. Like, there is no danger there. I mean, the danger
that's what those Instagrammers say who die.
Okay, you're being so dramatic.
But so again, it was the coolest. It was the
most traumatizing, but yet coolest thing ever.
There's the complete and utter silence. I've never been anywhere where I've never heard another sound. I mean, it was really a moment for me. So it was pretty cool. So it's probably why it was my favorite place we went to.
I have the perfect gift for her for Christmas. Earplugs.
Apparently
she loves silence. Just give her some earplugs.
Yeah. But no, it did offer some great scenery. And that was, again, the sun going down just kind of made it even better. I'm sure it would have been great without the sun going down, but just the colors changing. I got a few pictures of those. We'll post those.
Oh, of course.
But yeah. And
what
then,
else?
there's several other gorges that there was Hugh Gorge, Ormiston Gorge, and Red Bank Gorge too. So there's tons of gorges out there. So it's just a place you can kind
lots of nature.
You can get lost. You can be out there, and the later you wait in the day, then the more likely you're going to be able to avoid some of those tourists. And we only had one spot, which was where the girl was
jumping in the lake.
in. There was a group of younger guys there. I don't know if they were probably middle school, maybe something like that. But
what were they doing out there?
Well,
it was a sports team. They were all together.
I think it was. I mean, they were grown-ups with them. A handful of grown-ups with them. But they left almost as soon as we got there, and I can only imagine. I mean, this place is probably overrun.
How often does it happen?
All the time.
So, what else do you want to talk about with the?
That's all I've got
McDonald
for that.
ranges.
That's all I've got.
And there's several other ones that we didn't actually get to go to. I mean, but what's crazy is they almost seem kind of close because you're in the desert. But yeah, it's like, okay, we're going to have to drive 45 minutes to get to this next one. Okay, this one's an hour, Some of them it's like 20, 30 minutes, but and then you still got to hike. So it's going to take you a good amount of time. But
all right, what's next?
Highly
next
recommend that West McDonald Range.
So, are you done with Alice Springs?
I think
please
so,
be.
yeah.
Okay. Please be.
So
what's your problem?
So from there, we were driving to Uluru, which is the big rock out in the desert that everyone knows about, basically Red Center. So that is about a 5-hour drive, almost 300-mile drive from Alice Springs to Uluru. So we knew we'd have to kind of get up and get going the next day to get there. They tell you shouldn't be on the road in the evening at dusk because of the kangaroos and animals that you can hit.
Which
that kind of thing.
The very first night we were there, we literally drove the entire way back
we
from
saw
that
one kangaroo.
gorge.
Yeah,
and in the dark, and we were like, okay, I'm really going to have to watch the roads because there's probably animals all over the place and crossing. Yeah, we really didn't see many animals. We were kind of disappointed in that. We expected to see animals, all over the place.
Yeah, you said that last podcast too. Yeah.
So we set out on our drive, and on the way there, one of the places I had read about that we could go to was Rainbow Valley, which when I pulled it up online,
you would love it.
It says it's 12 miles of a dirt unpaved road off the paved road. You take this 12-mile road to get to Rainbow Valley. When I say it's unpaved,
There's not. You have to have a
So
four-wheel
it's
drive.
all sand.
It's sand.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, basically sand.
They highly recommend you have a SUV or
Yeah, four-wheel
four-wheel
drive.
drive.
Yeah.
So we looked it up and we researched it, and it's like, yeah, these, I have this kind of car. I did it. It's fine. This kind of car. I don't know what those people were talking about. Like the drive there. I mean,
the 12 miles took us
we
an hour, I think.
Oh, easy. I mean, we probably averaged 20 to 25 kilometers an hour.
Oh, yeah.
So we were creeping, and I'm not a slow driver. I'm going to drive as fast as I can.
It's like 10 miles an hour or something.
Yeah, I mean, it was
probably
like
15.
it was so bumpy that you just couldn't do it. And then at times we would kind of spin out and almost seem like we were getting stuck. So it was interesting.
I kept saying, maybe we should turn around. I think
Yeah.
we should stop. We should turn. He's
Well,
like, we're halfway there now, so we should just keep going.
It's like, oh, okay, well, we've driven for 30 or whatever minutes, and we're halfway there, so why turn around now? Yeah, well, because you still have halfway to go, Lee.
Yeah.
You probably should turn around. But it was,
yeah.
So you get there, and there's this huge rock formation that you can kind of hike around. And it was really, we have some pictures. It was really cool. For me personally, I would not do the 12 miles of dirt road for it. To me, it wasn't worth it. Now, if I had a different vehicle, maybe, but in the car we had, no.
So I think the other thing for me is it was one of the only places to stop along this 5-hour drive, like significant area to stop. So you're literally driving. Imagine driving in the Midwest or in Arizona where it's flat as can be. So you're just driving and driving and driving, and there's just not much of anything.
Yeah.
So it's kind of to break up the trip a little bit. I don't remember. It was maybe an hour outside of Alice Springs. So I thought, yeah, we'll stop. But, it was pretty. I liked it. I think it's, if you have a lot of time to kill, and the drive doesn't bother you, you and I probably wouldn't love it because we're not going to like going slow.
No.
We want to get
On
wherever
sand,
we want to get.
exactly. And I don't like anything in the Outback. So
That's true.
yeah.
Except
What
for
about the
Alice
bush?
Springs chicken.
Now that I'd be fine with.
But yeah. So I liked it. I'm glad that we did it. As I was driving it, if you would have asked me if I would do it again, I would have said no in a heartbeat. But it's,
And now
it's
that
worth
you're
it.
done, you would say I would not do it again. But
I would say that.
I might. It depends on what kind of car I had. But I will say on the drive back, we could go significantly faster. So I don't know if it's how the sand somehow was laying. But yeah, if we went 30 kilometers an hour, we were getting shook to death, and I feel like I couldn't have control of the car, even such a minimal amount. I was going probably 50 kilometers an hour on the way back.
Oh, wow.
So it was significantly different.
cool.
So that's it on that.
All right, what's
Okay.
next?
Yeah.
So
Stop trying to rush us.
I am definitely trying to rush you. You're boring the
I'm
heck out of
trying
me.
to, too. I'm trying to get moving. So
You're boring the heck out of all of our listeners right
the
now.
next place we went, it's actually where we spent the night, was called Curtin Springs Station. It's about an hour
goodness.
out of where our Uluru, which is where the destination was.
Right.
But it was late in the day, and we'll get to this, but accommodations in Uluru are tough to find. So we found this little, they call it a station. It's a gas station, bathrooms, campground, restaurant, bar, budget accommodations.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, it's all of this together at this one place.
But it makes it sound big. It's
But
not.
it's
big.
not. It was,
The parking lot for the campers and stuff was bigger than about everything else that just got mentioned.
it was just, it's
It
like
was
this,
awesome. It's like you're out in the middle of nowhere and it's so desolate and you don't see anything literally for an hour or two, and then you come across this little
Gas station.
Yeah, effectively, and what you would think in almost like a scary movie where somebody runs out of gas and you're like trying to get
Wow.
there. Yeah. What?
I hadn't thought about that. No, it's like, yeah.
But so I thought it was awesome, but it was extremely desolate. It was a cool little accommodation, very simple,
Budget.
by the way. Yeah,
Mosquitoes.
But it's one of the we did have to kill probably at least 20 mosquitoes in our
room when we first walked in the room.
That's
it was
nice.
bad.
Yeah.
Just to throw this out there too, the Curtin Springs is actually a working cattle farm also. So on top of all this, they run a 4,000 head of cattle farm, and their property covers about 1 million acres.
Oh yeah. Wow.
It's
Yeah.
And that's the only building on that million
and
acres.
that's what we drove through the entire time to get there.
A million acres.
Million acres.
That's what it felt like.
And it was, again, it had this cool, like their little restaurant bar.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing else to do. So, yeah, everybody's out there just kind of chatting it up, just getting to know people. I mean, just kind of living it up.
Were you the only Americans?
No.
There were other.
No.
How many people were there?
But there are all kinds of other countries, too. I mean,
the guy who checked us in actually was from Germany.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Which is interesting. There were there probably were only like 20 rooms, but the camping section, there's free camping and then there's paid camping. That probably had, each of those sections probably had 30 cars in it, or 30 campers or RV. I know you love RVs, so.
Yeah. As you can imagine, we talked about this previously, but camping is huge there because you drive for hours, and, there's places that you want to, these like West McDonald ranges, you want to stop because you're 2 hours
never
from
see
town,
him again.
3 hours from town, so you just want to stop somewhere, and that's kind of what this is like. So there are just all kinds of little RVs, little stuff turned to putting a bed in the second half of the car, just to camp in, just to sleep in. I mean, it was kind of cool.
And they all have, what's cool too is they have solar panels on top of them, most of them.
Yeah.
So you'll see this vehicle, and all of a sudden, what?
Some of them.
Well, you'll see this solar panel sticking out the top, and that's how they, I guess, get their power for everything. So it was interesting. So
lots of the places that you would stop in these different ranges, like the Rainbow Valley place, it had hookups for camping and stuff too. So kind of cool.
So that basically,
like that sort of thing,
was just a place for us to spend the night, pretty much. So then we got up the next morning to go to what I guess people would say is the highlight of that area, which is the Uluru-Katachuta National Park, which is broken up.
All right, tell me about that.
Into two things: Uluru, which is the big red huge rock.
And have you heard of it or no?
I've heard of it, but I don't know that I know what it is.
So it's a massive like sandstone rock, and it's a sacred site to the indigenous people. They believe that it is the resting place of past spirits. So it's extremely sacred to them, and we can talk more about some of the things about that. So the national park is it's a pretty big park, but the two main things are the Uluru and then the Katachuta, which is a large group of like domed rock formations, which was pretty cool. It is these massive, like just domed rocks out there, and you go and you walk up to them and you kind of hike around them. And everything is like Lee had said earlier, like this red desert sand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So every walk you do, you come back to the car and your feet, your pants, everything. So
definitely ruined a pair.
Three
of
pairs of shoes have been ruined because I've washed them, and the red sand will not come off them. It's crazy. Do you want to add to that about
what?
What do you want to add? And the red sand
or anything?
Well, yeah. So, are you going to talk about the climb?
I thought I was letting you talk about that.
Okay. Why don't you start it, because you can probably articulate it better.
Okay.
No doubt.
So, like I said, Uluru is this huge rock, and it is sacred. So
that wasn't very good at articulating.
Is it really a rock, or is it like
a sandstone?
It's sandstone. You said that earlier. Yeah,
but
that
it's
makes
huge.
Sense.
I mean, it doesn't look like it's that big.
Like
and driving up, you see it in the distance, and you're like, "That's it, really?"
Yeah.
When you get
and
close,
then you get closer and closer, you're like, "Oh wow, okay." Yeah.
But the biggest debate with this rock is that people climb up the side of the rock and then hike on top of it. The people that think it's sacred obviously don't want you doing that. They think it's very disrespectful. So there's a whole debate about, do you climb it? Do you not climb it? Is it okay morally to climb? Different things.
Sure.
And so you get a pamphlet.
And of course, you had no moral compunction about. Yeah, you were.
She did.
One of us did.
Yeah.
So when you get to the park, they give you. Hold on. They give you a pamphlet that gives you some information, and one of the things it says is, please don't climb the rock. It's dangerous. It's hot. Blah blah blah. Then right next to it says, but if you are going to climb the rock, make sure you have proper shoes, water, all that.
That is an invitation.
And not only that, but they have rangers that go out and check it. What is it, twice a day?
No, it's like 4 times a day. The ranger climbs the
rock
rock
to make sure the hiking conditions are okay to hike it.
And they have a sign that tell you if it's open or closed.
So it's enabling.
So basically what they've said is, this is a tourist attraction. We love it. And to appease the Aboriginals, we're going to give them a pamphlet and say, please don't.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
They also have like a chain rope up the side
so
for you to actually.
Essentially has. So if all that wasn't enough, I really wasn't planning on climbing it because I knew Miriam wouldn't. I knew she wouldn't like it that I did, and that it's also disrespectful. But they literally had chain link
rope
posts anchored into the ground, that weren't budging, and I was just like, what in the world? You got to be kidding me. This is basically your invitation that says, here, we're trying to make this easier for you to hike up.
Please climb.
So I didn't hike the whole thing because it would take a while. Apparently it takes a few hours. In hindsight, I kind of wished I would have, because they're actually banning it as of October 1st.
So they actually passed a law, and they're going to... There was like a
I guarantee they will still have something like special permit, special something. They have to, but they're supposedly banning it from all, people climbing it. And I went maybe halfway up, and
like the side of it. So once you get to the top, you actually hike around the whole top of it. So he only did like halfway up the front of the mountain and the side.
Yeah, it was intimidating. I mean, I liked it.
It's pretty sheer, right?
Phenomenal views. Yeah, it is. It is. And, obviously I wasn't planning on hiking it, so I wasn't really prepared. So I just had on kind of regular tennis shoes. And, of course, there were some people with, like, flip-flops. I mean, there were some people doing it that, you could tell they weren't prepared either. And, So.
We'll post some pictures of that. Did you fall?
No, I didn't fall, but really towards the bottom, I got to a point to where I had to stop for a minute because I felt uneasy because my shoes were slipping and sliding, and I'm like, I'm about to slip on down to the end of this rock.
Yeah. You just rode it down, man, like a big old slide.
That's the thing. There's a gap between where the fence thing you hold ends and then where it's still pretty steep. And I sat there and watched people, and there's this girl, she sat down on her butt for like 20 minutes and didn't budge. Because she was sitting there like, how am I going to get down?
Yeah. I was sliding a little bit, but you had the chain and the pole to kind of hold on to. So, what are you laughing at?
You love to hold on to a pole, don't you?
Again, this guy runs Facebook and Instagram. Gosh. Yeah. So, but it was a little uneasy when I got towards the bottom. I thought, okay, this is... as easy as it was for me to go up for a little ways, it got extremely difficult.
That's how I feel about stairs.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Do you have anything else on Uluru?
No.
Katachuta?
Yeah. But we got to see the sunset on it, and it's interesting because I read all this stuff about how it turns the rock a different color, and it really does. I mean, it just gets like a bright red, almost like a rustic red, and it's just a beautiful sight to see. But what's interesting is there's parking lot for it, and it just goes on and on and on. So there's literally people for, half a mile, like back, truck to truck or car to car, of people just waiting to watch it set and rise, the sun on it. But it was beautiful. So of course I'll post a few more of those pictures. I've already posted some from the trip, but yeah.
All right, cool.
What else? Anything else?
Well, I was just going to go to the Ayers Rock Resort is the last thing I have.
Do it.
Okay, so Ayers Rock Resort is basically the only place there that offers lodging.
It's not basically. It is.
So that's why we stayed the hour outside at that Curtin Springs, because we waited too long to book that portion of our lodging. And so when we did the research, it was, Ayers Rock Resort. And they probably have 5 to 6 different tiers of lodging, from like a basic hostel lodging to $500, $600 a night.
In a hostel? Please tell me you stayed in a hostel.
We stayed in a hostel.
Oh, yes.
We stayed in a Outback lodge, which offers regular rooms, but when you wait too long to book, all that's available is a mixed shared dorm room.
Love it.
Yeah.
So when we show up and check in,
you didn't actually need 70s porn music for this. Do you have any of that?
I asked the guy. I said, "Now, is there any chance you have anything else?" "No, we are 100% booked." And we're like, "All right, we'll just deal with it." So we find our hostel, which basically is like a concrete prison cell. Is pretty much what it looks like. And
they give you an orange jumpsuit
and
and a stick to pick up trash with.
we go in and there's 2 girls in there, or like so. Our
now
roommates.
we really do
So-
need
Suggs,
70s
you
porn
finally
music.
got Troy's attention.
Yeah, I might want to go to Australia.
So
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
we have 2 female roommates, and it's 2 sets of bunk beds, and they said, "Oh well, we've taken the bottom bunks." So Lee and I are both on a
What
top.
the
We
heck?
both had
First of all, we're both old.
What the heck?
So we both were on a top
Who
bunk.
does that?
Like, yeah, I don't know. I thought,
Apparently, people that go to hostels.
yeah, I don't know. We don't go to hostels very often. I don't mean to
did.
offend anybody, but
I
it is
would have
not-
gotten hostel.
It is not
I
our.
would have been sleeping in my
not
car.
our cup of tea.
Yeah.
I did not take any of my clothes off. Like I did not change. Like I. Oh,
Yeah.
I thought he was yelling at me there. I was like completely covered head to toe.
Yeah, you didn't take any of your clothes off.
Yeah. I felt very like the
How's the
mattress
shared
probably
bathroom?
had.
Oh yeah, that mattress.
so-
do not put a black light on that mattress.
So the
that
shared
mattress, that mattress was in rough condition.
The shared bathroom is like a huge, like a dorm room bathroom. So
Yeah.
it's like 12 showers and 12 toilets. And so, yeah, I didn't shower. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't shower. There's no way I was showering. So I just no. I made sure to stop drinking by like 7 o'clock because I was like, I don't want to get up in the middle of the night and climb down from this bunk and have to go to the bathroom. It was not a great experience for us. And
Yeah,
the,
that
one
sounds
of the
miserable.
first things they
Hindsight, it's hilarious, especially people that know us.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was uneasy. I mean, it was
It
awkward.
was.
But it's like for younger people, it is a party. I mean, they have like a
Yeah,
band
it is. That's why you
Oh,
don't want a
and
black light on that
they
mattress.
have they have a band, a bar,
Yeah.
a actual restaurant, like a takeout restaurant. They have a thing where you pay for the meat and vegetables and then you cook it yourself on a grill.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I was like, why would
Yeah.
you pay to cook it? I mean, I get it; it's the Outback
Because
experience.
there's nothing
but-
else there. Yeah.
And
that's
then they
why.
have a communal kitchen, so there were people in there cooking like full on meals.
Yeah.
They did have one grocery store, and Miriam and I got a rotisserie chicken and took it and ate it while we were
Driving.
driving around.
Oh,
And
It was
wow.
like a really good rotisserie chicken too. But so that it's just you need to book ahead for that, and it has one gas station. It has a few nicer restaurants. I think the whole area does, and it's all like walkable or driving between. So it's its own little village they've created, and it was neat. Except for I'm like scarred. I don't want to stay in that situation again. It was just not. They also told us, hey, FYI, we have a sunrise tour scheduled for tomorrow morning.
yeah.
And I was like,
Isn't
what
that
time
awesome?
does that mean? Well, we have to get picked up at 5. So
In the
we'll
morning?
probably be up.
Oh, yeah.
So they set their alarm for 4, I think, 4:15. And
Oh, gosh.
they weren't that bad leaving, but they came back. And they, you come back still early in the morning after the sun rises. And it was like they decided to unpack everything in their suitcases. And all you hear is like crunch, crunch, like plastic crumbling. And like, at that point, Lee and I
Yeah.
both, we
so
were.
not only did they wake us up when they left, they woke us up when they
got
came
back.
back. Yeah.
You
And
should have
so-
gotten up when they left and got right in their beds.
That would've been
Ew.
awesome and kind of
Yeah.
disgusting.
Yeah, listen, don't act like those sheets were washed before you got in them because they were
That's
not.
why I stayed fully clothed, head to toe.
They were
Come on.
not.
So yeah, at that point when they came back and were loud, we were like, we're awake, and we packed up and
Got the hell
left
out.
because we were like, whatever. But
But it was an experience.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not one that we would want to duplicate, but
no.
it was an experience.
Yeah, all right.
So,
So what else?
That's all I've got.
Wow. So that's all of the Outback.
We did see. Sorry, add this really quick. We said we didn't see any animals. We did see on our 5-hour drive several kangaroos dead because apparently they actually do cross the road and they get roadkill.
Yeah.
I mean, massive
thank you.
kangaroos.
Ending on a high note.
I know. I just want to say. So apparently they are out there. We just thankfully didn't run into any, but it was pretty cool
All
in
right.
general.
So what I've taken from this is the Australian Outback. Not for me. It sounds like there's a lot of driving.
Yes.
To see. So there's the pattern there is it's all desert. There's nothing. Drive through a lot of nothing. Tiny little town or village or just one little gas station.
Yep.
Then drive hours through nothing again, and then find another one of those.
Yep.
Why don't you give us your final thoughts, guys, and we'll wrap this thing up. I will say this: that sounds horrible. I'm so glad I didn't go. No offense to anybody from Australian Outback,
Too late for that. About 5 times.
But I think you should.
You mean
pair,
the bush?
Yeah. No offense to anybody from the bush, but I think you should pair with New Orleans, and both of you are going to need to get a really good publicist or somebody to kind of make sure that people want to come there, because it sounds like nobody would want to go there.
People want to go there, though.
Oh, yeah.
That's what's crazy.
So
that rock, people...
They obviously... So like you, people want to go there. And like me, before I knew somebody that went there, I want to go there.
See, I didn't want to go there.
And then you hear about it, and you're like, oh, God, this is terrible.
Do you want to give your in summary? Since he's just
rambling?
trashing it.
My in summary was, it's really cool. It's neat to say you've been to the Australian Outback. But second, what you said, it's a lot of driving, and it's a lot of nothingness. And besides my moment of silence I had and peace, that I could have done without the nothingness. Like
that 5 minutes that you were hopeful that Lee had fallen off the rock.
No, I actually was really worried. I really was worried he had fallen because I couldn't hear him. So,
it's not going to mess up my peace, but I'm worried that he's fallen. I'm not going to go check on him because this is so peaceful. I can find his mutilated body later.
And the car keys.
I wonder if the keys will still be intact. Yeah. I hope he doesn't break them when he lands on them. Gosh.
What about you, Lee?
Yeah. So I'm outdoorsy, from growing up in the mountains. So it's kind of neat to see the differences in this kind of stuff. I think that you are right. You would not like it at all. I would agree with that, but I think that there are tons of people who this is exactly what they love. Yeah. And the ability to just be able to go out and just camp and just leisurely hang out and meet random people and talk to people, it's great for them. And that is I'm like in between on that. I like parts of it, but I don't like parts of it. So I still enjoyed it, and I loved it. And I think the more that I look back on it, I'm going to be so glad that I did it one day. And I think Miriam might too, but she just might not appreciate it as much right now. But
I appreciate everything.
Yeah, you really do. Yeah, right.
All right, well, cue the music, Ben, and we will. And we now have music when I say cue the music. People don't know that I used to say that, and they had to go put it in afterwards.
So fancy.
Now we just have music. Yeah, it's exciting. And we pretended to have music before, but now...
You guys pretend a lot.
But what are you talking about?
Yeah. Well, he makes up stuff. That's not the same as pretend. What do you?
Hey, why don't you end with our motto, and we'll get out of here.
Yeah. It's better to go someplace that you hate than to not go anywhere at all.
Agree.
Sweet.
Staying in a hostel. You hated it, but it still was good to go. Better to go.
Good to experience it. Kind of like New Orleans.
Hey, so let me tell you, though. So we had... we met a few people while we were out there, and they were asking us, how long do you have? Because we mentioned in the last podcast how we just don't have enough time, And we were talking to these Italians and then some other people, but I specifically remember the Italians. How much time do you have? How much time are you here? And we're like, like 12 days or whatever it is, and 13 days. And they're basically like, what?
Their jaw dropped.
Yeah. They're like, you only have 13 days here? And I'm like, yeah, that's like the most I've ever taken. And
they're like, we have 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Lazy Europeans.
They're like, how much time do you get? And, I told them, I was like, we get 34 days, but that includes everything for us, and that's actually not bad for most companies here. And they were just like, we get about 40 days, but then we get all these mandatory holidays and this and that.
And sick days don't matter.
Yeah. They just take off. So
it was.
So we need to move to Europe
with no job.
I will move to Italy.
That's good.
That you would.
I will move to Italy.
Okay, guys,
be there soon.
We're done. If you're still listening, the question is why.
No. The answer is you're welcome.
All right.
Bye.
Sheila. Bye.